Oh, can we bring this up?
Yeah, you can give her that.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. All right, so a recap of what's been going on. So a couple weeks ago, I was filling in for Scott, and we were talking about free will. We were talking about free will, determinism, and compatibilism. And we also brought up fatalism, and that ties right into determinism. So we don't need to spend much time with fatalism, but fatalism was basically the idea that whatever happens, happens necessarily. So it's just unavoidable. Whatever happens had to happen. So determinism, does anybody remember determinism? Or what's your idea when you think of determinism? What do you think?
Well, it sounds like God makes the plan, he determines it, and we're stuck with it.
Okay.
I don't know if that's what it is, but that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, so
Free will, is that right? Determinism.
so free will ties in with determinism. How? Are they mutually exclusive? Can you have free will and be causally determined to do what you do?
I don't think so.
No. So free will, the person or agent, is the cause of the choice that's being made. With determinism, there is not agent causation. With determinism, you do what you do by some outside force, some outside cause other than yourself. So, what's compatibilism? Compatibilism is these two are not mutually exclusive. Compatibilism suggests that you have free will and your choices are causally determined. So, does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense because God is so powerful, like a dad can give his kids choices in such a way that, or God plays a game of chess,
Oh, hang on.
have it end up the way he wants it to.
Hang on one second. We're going to try something. I want to get. Here you go. You want to hold it? Or?
I can hold it, yeah.
All right.
Sure.
Yeah, we just pass it around.
Okay.
That way we can get what people are saying, because on the video, you can only hear one side of it. So,
God determines an outcome, but gets us to that outcome through persuasion, through his amazing power, where he brings influences on your life that you still make the choice, but God's will is performed.
okay.
You still have free will, but it's like a child making choices and with the father who knows how to present the choices, and, knows what the background of the child is. Of course, God also knows what decisions you'll make.
Okay.
Before you make it.
That's right.
All right. So how would they be compatible then? If God is bringing it about, then are you still having free will? So I'll write that up here, and we can expand on it. So if my choice is free, how does God ensure the result?
Throw something in about free choices.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't really have free will. I mean, in one sense, we're slaves to sin, but we can't fly.
Okay.
We can't do whatever we want. So you have to, I guess, define free will, or
Now, we can't do whatever we want.
right.
So with free will, we can't do anything. I mean, there's not some, just a blanket, we can do whatever
Right.
there is, but we can at least want to do something. Sounds like what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's bounded through, like, I don't know if this is completely,
Oh yeah. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Let's.
What I'm about to say, I don't know if it fits into the tiles and systematic theology, because I think we touched on this before, like, at different spots, but like, so not to use a movie reference here, but you know, the Adjustment Bureau, right? Where it's like, it's boundary free will, right? So you have, think about it like a lane, right? You can move anywhere within that lane. You have anywhere to wiggle room as far as within that lane, but going outside of that lane is predetermined. But then so that's great to say and use that as like a way to understand it. But then, the hard questions come up like, okay, well, if I am, if I've only got bounded free will and it ends badly, did I ever really have the chance to, you know what I mean? And I end up like take Hitler, for instance, right? I know everyone like goes to the worst example there, but like, I think what we've talked about before is God would never create a being that was set up for failure, right? So we've always got like the ability to overcome sin, or the ability to overcome sinful choices. We've always got free will, but then again, I think there is a piece of it where some of it's like the fact that He transcends time. He sees where everything ends up, and then to unpack an even like stickier situation here, then let's talk about prayer, right? Like if we have free will, but things are sort of predestined, then what's the point of praying for God to intercede on our behalf? Can He intercede on our behalf? So it's totally like complex,
Right.
thing that I just threw at.
No, that's great. That's great. That's great. So if predestined, hopefully you can read my
I think they're all
hieroglyphics
related,
here.
you know what I mean? Like I think,
I pray.
and I know this is a total cop out, but I think some of this is like we can't wrap our heads around how God could be in control of everything but still give us free will. We may never have that answer. That's a total cop out.
No, that's a great question, and I think it's a question that we should ask. If God, could you rephrase the question, or just say it again real quick? If God knows what's going to happen, then
So we can say, like, we as humans can't, like, intellectually reconcile how you could make, the compatibility thing that you're talking about, right? How you could jam free will and, a modicum of predestination into a system where they both work. Like, we could always say, oh, well, we just don't have, humans don't have the intellectual capacity to understand it, or whatever. God understands it, which, I mean, yeah, that's true.
it's
But,
it's
that's
like
also a cop-out.
just a mystery or
Yeah, the
something
whole
like
mystery
that,
thing,
or
it's like, oh, it's a mystery. Like,
okay.
I think that's the point of this class, right? We're trying to unpack some of the mysteries.
Yeah. We want to ask the difficult questions and try to answer them.
Right.
So, just so I can capture your question, because it's a good question. I just want to make sure I have it all. If we have free will, then how does that explain?
So how do we reconcile that with predestination,
Okay.
if we want to call it that?
Yeah.
How do we reconcile predestination?
I
Okay.
don't even know if predestination is the word to use there.
So predestination, with predestination, it's setting a destination in advance, right? So a destination is preset for someone or something. You said God being in control.
Right.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. How do we reconcile God
And
being in
think
control?
too, like, and we all believe that God transcends time, right? So He can see. There is no time for Him, right? As I understand it, like everything is seamless. There's no past, present, future, right? So He can see the outcome of everything. If He can see the outcome of everything, does that mean, like, just because He can see the end of the movie, doesn't mean He's
Okay, so if God knows what's going to happen, how do we have free will?
Yeah, we have free will, but just, I guess my point is just because God knows what's going to happen doesn't imply that we don't have, or that he is restricting our free will.
Right.
I guess it really comes back to that prayer question, right? Like how much, you know, if I'm, you know, take for instance, let's say I'm like predestined, or, you know, the end game for me is I'm like a serial killer or something like that, right?
Okay.
And I pray for God to intercede or whatever, but he already knows that's what the end state is, like.
He knows you're going to do that.
Is he praying gonna change anything?
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Let me grab the mic.
But
Oh.
On the other side of that, if God is not influencing us in some way, then what's the point of prayer? I mean, if we're praying for somebody else, I mean, if they have total free will, why should we bother praying? I mean, nothing's going to happen, you know. But clearly, God works and God influences, and you know.
Well, do you think God does influence us? Who? Let's get a show of hands. Who in here thinks God does influence us? Okay. Let's get a show of hands. Who in here thinks God does not influence us? Okay. So, who in here thinks the devil influences us? Who in here thinks the devil does not influence us?
Well, I think he doesn't because he doesn't exist.
Okay. So, if he didn't exist, that would be a reason why he wouldn't influence us. But yeah, can we be influenced? So, is being influenced by something the same as being caused to do something?
No.
Okay. That's right. No, it does not. But does God influence us? What if we pray for God to help us with something? For God to help us be more loving? Do you think that's something that God would want us to do, to be more loving? Okay. So if he wants us to do something, if it's his will for us to do something, and if we have free will, and we're asking for his help to be more loving, even though we have free will, is that something that he can answer in a positive sense? Is that something he can actually help us with? Dennis, what do you, actually, can we get the mic to Dennis? For those who came in a little bit later, we're trying to get the microphone around to be able to hear both sides of the interaction for the sound. So.
I'm for one thoroughly confused. Nice try. I'm still thoroughly confused. I'd like to hear Al, because I don't know what Calvinism is. And,
Okay. Wasn't sure if that would come up today, but
Okay.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me leave a lot of space here for this one.
You're good, brother.
Yeah. So we're getting into some really, really deep stuff this morning then. Okay. Calvinism or not? Is that the question? Or what is Calvinism? Or
what is it?
okay, Calvinism.
I think
Calvinism.
Calvinists would agree with the compatibilism
What is
view,
Calvinism?
but I don't really agree with how it's defined here. There's a certain,
How Calvinism is defined?
yeah,
Or how compatibilism is defined?
yeah, I think compatibilism is compatible with Calvinism. But
Okay.
the way, there's one sentence here I don't agree with in the compatibilism definition. It says that
So let me,
all events
if-
are, okay.
if you just let me read it out loud just for anyone who doesn't have that. So compatibilism was defined as the view that free will and determinism are both true. We are the cause of our choices, and our choices are caused/determined by something other than ourselves. In parentheses, logically contradictory. We make our own choices, and we do not make our own choices because they are determined by something other than ourselves. So that,
Away from my question, what is Calvinism?
right. I just wanted to clear that up because that's what he's going to be talking about. So,
That's a big question. Yeah, whenever,
Yeah.
whenever people talk about Calvinism, this is the issue. It's free will
Right.
versus
Right.
predetermination, predestination.
mhm.
And
Well, predestination, remember, that's setting the destination ahead of time. So it's more like free will versus determinism, right?
But yeah, so with Calvinism, it's I guess I've heard it described as a stricter view of predestination, being that all the events are
Predetermined.
And so the way, if the question is how is it possible that all of these events are predetermined and yet we have free will, if that is possible, I would put it this way. Let's say God knows everything and He knows everyone, He knows you so perfectly that He knows that if He puts you into this lifetime and all these, He knows all the experiences that you're going to be in. He knows how you're going to interact every step of the way. And He puts you there for that purpose, for His higher purpose of having these events take place.
Like Pharaoh? Like Pharaoh,
Yeah. Like
where he said, I raised you up for this very purpose.
Yeah, and so it's like with God hardening Pharaoh's heart. If you know someone very well, you're not going to know 100%, but to some extent you're going to know if I approach this person in this way, he's going to react
Okay.
this way.
So is that knowledge of what someone would do in any given circumstance or what someone will do?
Would or will, yeah.
Yeah, because
I guess
there's a
I
difference,
guess
right?
With God, He already knows.
So yeah, if God is omniscient,
Perfectly.
then would He know the future? Show of hands, how many people think yes? If God is omniscient, then future knowledge is part of what He would know. Okay. If God is omniscient, so a separate question, if God is omniscient, then would God know what people would do freely in any given circumstance? In some possible situation someone could be in, then would God know what that person would do in that situation? How many people think yes? Okay. How many people think no?
I think you know
Okay.
what they will do
Okay.
if He exists.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, can I ask a question about
Sure.
is predestination?
Al, sorry. Al, can you hold the microphone over so you can hear him?
Predestination a synonym for Calvinism?
No. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Al. Sorry.
No, because actually it's taught in the Bible, so it's just a question of how you
Right.
explain the question,
Yes.
how it is that we can have both man is 100% responsible and God is 100% sovereign over it.
So that's a big question when it comes to this. Also,
That's
to
where-
Calvinism is
That's where we
sovereignty, right?
agree, but explaining how that could be possible is where we disagree.
oops.
Yeah.
So is
No, it's
You're taking a small point and saying, is it a synonym for a body of beliefs? You know, one of the beliefs is not a synonym for the whole body of beliefs. So.
yeah. So what he was saying is, yeah, it's not a description of Calvinism per se. So predestination, right? Predestination, that's taught in the Bible, and that's the idea that someone's destination is prearranged, or a group's destination is prearranged, right? Like, for example, those who believe in Jesus, those who have faith in God, their destination is prearranged, prescribed, preset, versus those who reject God and harden their hearts against Him and hate God, their destination is set in advance also. That would be an example of predestining, right? Or if someone, even in an example of maybe a smaller scale thing, if someone just knows, hey, my kid will go to this school, my kid will go to this daycare, or my kid will here. You're presetting that destination for them.
And not to beat this dead horse again.
No.
On Calvinism again, are there Calvinists who do believe that it is predestination? Like, is there a split in the Calvinist doctrine?
There are different forms of Calvinism. There are Calvinists who believe we do not have free will. There are Calvinists who believe we have free will, but our free will is determined by our desires, and God determines our desires. So the question is that compatible? If God chooses our desires, if God chooses our desires, then, and if our free will is conditional upon what we desire the most at that time, then is that really free will?
Al shaking his head.
Right. But that's what I've heard them say. So that's just one example of that. So could you bring the mic over, or sorry. Just sorry about the microphone situation. It's until I get a drone that can automatically hone in and hang the microphone from it. This is what we're dealing with.
Sound-guided drone that goes to where the sound is.
Right. It detects hands raised. So.
Predestined, I think in Calvinist view, is more the individual. God has so elected, has to do election, elected the individual to be in His family, say, go to heaven in the end.
Okay.
More than just predetermine what they're doing, or predestine a whole group. I believe it's election. That is one of the, I'll say, 5 points of Calvinism. But we talked about Pharaoh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and it says God hardened his heart. I always picture, first, we do believe, I think we believe, that God has the power to make us do, to change how we think, to do whatever He wants with us. I think He has the power.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, does He do that? I've always thought of God hardening Pharaoh's heart, that He went and did something inside Pharaoh's heart to
Right.
make him obstinate and stubborn, which he doesn't have to go very far to find those type of people.
Right. So if he's hardening,
But
okay, go ahead.
Spoke more. I thought, well, maybe the way God hardened Pharaoh's heart was through His servant who obeyed Him, Moses, knowing how how Pharaoh would respond to Moses coming to him and saying, "Let my people go."
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't. So there's another possibility then, for the first time considering that rather than God going into Pharaoh's heart and hardening it, more along what I believe with the chess game, God used people who were obedient to Him, submissive to Him,
Mm-hmm.
to influence someone. So determined it, while Pharaoh still made his own choices without God changing his heart.
Right. So who is, do you all remember the definition of efficient cause? Because when discussing things like this, that is very, very important to have an understanding of. Efficient cause. So Aristotle defined 4 different types of causes: formal cause, final cause, efficient cause, and material cause. So we're just going to focus on the efficient cause as it relates to this, but it's that by means of which an effect is produced. For example, the carpenter is the efficient cause of the wooden table. An archer is the efficient cause of firing the arrow. So what would the efficient cause of the universe be if God created the universe? It would be God. So if the Bible says that Pharaoh hardened Pharaoh's heart, what would be the efficient cause of Pharaoh hardening his heart? Well, if it says that, then what about where? Okay, can you say that in the microphone? Or it said,
You didn't misspeak when you said Pharaoh hardened Pharaoh's heart?
right.
Oh, it says he hardened his heart, but
He misspoke, he meant God.
don't
No, I didn't
know.
misspeak. No.
Then-
So
My first thought.
So in Exodus 8:15, but when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart
Yeah.
and would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said.
I was gonna say, yeah.
So,
That it's both that God hardened his heart and
yeah.
he
So
showed-
in Genesis 8 through 10,
I don't know.
there are multiple occasions where Pharaoh's heart is getting hardened. But according to the Bible, there are 2 entities involved. It says that God hardened Pharaoh's heart, but it also says Pharaoh hardened his own heart. So did the Bible make a mistake? Or is that true? Did Pharaoh harden his own heart? And who in here knows who hardened Pharaoh's heart first? Pharaoh.
I was gonna say happened at the same time.
Well, it says the first instance of that happening is Pharaoh hardening his heart. So if God hardens people's hearts before they have a chance to not harden their heart or do anything about that, then is God being just in that? Dennis?
What is it? If
Al,
this
could
God
you hand him
exists-
that? Sorry. Thanks.
If this God exists, and he is all powerful, all omniscient, isn't he necessarily the efficient cause of everything?
Good question. What do you think? What the rest of you think?
I don't know if we're using the right, is there agent, distinguishing between agent causation and efficient causation. I think we have 2 agents involved in this. You know, God is an agent and Pharaoh is also an agent.
Right.
Whenever I've talked about the distinction, it's been like, I'm the agent, when I choose to hand the microphone to someone,
Mhm.
I'm the agent causation, and my physical abilities are the efficient cause.
Well, you would be the efficient cause. You would be causing your hand to stretch out and let your fingers to open up and let go of the microphone so someone else can take it, right? But you would be the efficient cause of that.
But like a computer would only have efficient causes involved. It wouldn't have any agent causes, except for, we're programming it to do something. So,
Well, what would a computer do that it's not programmed to do?
maybe
Send a cyborg back in time.
Other than that, what would it? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
Right. So the programmer would be the efficient cause of what it does, right? So if someone enters malicious code into a computer system, what's the efficient cause? The computer making that thing happen, that bad thing happen, or the person making the computer make that happen? The person would be the efficient cause there.
No, well, it's the means by which the effect is produced, though, is you know, your fingers on the keyboard, and
Hmm.
that's your physical ability. That's the efficient cause.
Yeah, but would you be pushing the keys?
Yeah.
Right, so then you would be the cause.
But your choice, as an agent, your free will, your decision is the agent causation, and the efficient causation is the
No, so the agent would be the cause. The agent would be the cause of that happening.
cause, yeah.
Hmm.
But without your physical hands, it wouldn't happen.
Right, but what's making your hands do that? You.
Your mind, yeah, you.
Right. Yeah, so you would be and with personal agency, right, the agent, the person himself would be the cause, the efficient cause of that thing happening. Otherwise, if what you're saying is that there has to be a physical step involved, then how could God be the efficient cause of the universe?
From agent cause. Yeah. From agent causation. Like,
Okay.
The quote that I was trying to remember and couldn't remember, J.P. Moreland, he said that boiling water can be explained by two different things. It can be caused by chemical theory, if you can explain it that way, or you can explain it by the fact that somebody wants tea.
Right, right.
So that was the quote
Right.
I was trying to
So that would be the final cause, right? A different kind of cause, right? Somebody wanting tea wouldn't be the efficient cause; it would be the final cause, the reason for why it's happening.
And so both kinds of causation are involved.
Right, right. That's why there's a distinction between them, right? And the material cause would be that, but then the person choosing to set in motion that chain of events to end up getting tea produced, that person would be the efficient cause.
Okay.
Think of it like the first mover, right? Think of 1,000 dominoes set up, and you're going to wait. Think about waiting for them to fall, and waiting for them to fall. Well, they're all going to fall. If someone hits the first one, then they'll all fall. But without a first mover choosing to knock over that first one, they're just sitting there, or without an earthquake or something to bring that about. So, Dennis?
This example about computers is fascinating. Recently, there were two robots created, and computerized robots, and they were programmed to be able to speak to each other in their programmed language, whatever it was. And then after a while, all of a sudden, these things started communicating with each other in a language that they couldn't figure out, and they were reacting to it. So
And how were they able to do that?
how were they, what's the efficient cause of that? What is the,
Well, were they programmed to be able to do that?
no, they were programmed to speak to each other in a certain preset language. And all of a sudden, they just said, screw that, they made up their own language.
Okay.
So it's,
So that wasn't part of their programming to be able to do that? Okay, so there was a glitch?
So they figured it out.
Okay.
so what you're getting at, right? Like,
Oh,
their ability
could you
to
hand him
learn.
them?
What you're getting at with their ability to learn, like, is it's super creepy and super scary, and I think they stopped them from doing that, right? Like, I forget who it was that I read the same article. Whoever did that was like, we gotta shut this down because they're getting too smart, right? But like, just because they develop their own language to be able to talk to each other doesn't mean that they have the capability to like think about things. There's no, that's why we get like rabbit hole stuff, like God will find.
Okay.
We made the argument, or at least some people make the argument that since there's a soul and there is an intangible that you can't, that it's not substrate independent, that's not possible. But I guess my point is, yeah, it's kind of cool, right, and super creepy. It's the same way with the deep fake videos. The way they make those is they get two AIs to battle each other to like troubleshoot inconsistencies in the video. But that doesn't mean they have free will. That doesn't mean that they're authentic.
They're still doing what they're designed to
Right,
do.
they're communicating with each other. They just evolved
Yeah.
in as far as like they came up with a super efficient way of communicating that we, may not be able to figure out.
Yeah, they're still built upon if-then statements. If this, then this. Well, if you're locked into a framework of if this, then this. If this happens, then I have to do this. That's not free will. That's determinism. You're determined by these conditions surrounding which make up the if. If this, then you have to do this.
But if they
That's not
can
free
do
will.
that, what else can they order to do?
I don't know.
It depends on the limitations of the ones and zeros.
Okay.
I mean, really, it does. It's every computer program is programmed by someone, or if you create an algorithm that creates programs, it's dependent upon that algorithm, that computer doing that. But it wouldn't have intentional states. So we've got a lot of questions up here. They're good questions, but I think this one is a real interesting one that needs some attention. So, if we have free will, then how is God in control? How is God sovereign? Sorry. Yeah, this one right here. If we have free will, how do we reconcile God being in control? And if God's in control, what does that mean? How is God sovereign if we have free will? So, yes.
So, I think that this comes back to you can, talk about the president at any point in time. You can, well, I guess the president isn't bad. Maybe a dictator. So, at any point in time, they can step up and rule. But they aren't making every single decision of what's happening at all times.
Right.
So,
So a dictator could be
power to
sovereign.
do it doesn't mean that he's always choosing to make those decisions for everyone.
Right. So the dictator or a king would be sovereign in a land, but people can still do what they want. But they have the authority. They are the authority and the ruler. They have rule and authority over that area, that land, that thing, right? So if a king is sovereign, say if King George was sovereign, then does that mean they have free will? Or the people under him did not have free will? So Al, what do you think? Because if, from the Calvinist perspective, if God is sovereign, then do we have free will? Is that compatible with free will?
Okay, yeah, it's a mystery.
Okay.
Yeah, somehow, God creating us in His image, we have free will, just like He does. Although I wouldn't go as far as Scott does, as saying that our freedom of will is the same as that of God. I wouldn't say that.
So we have less free of a will than God?
It's our freedom of will is subject
To what he determines or to limitations of something?
Yeah, I guess, the limitations, God's higher plans.
So here's the thing. I was thinking about this the other day. and it comes back to what you were saying about we don't have the ability to do just any old thing, but we can want to. We can want to fly. But no matter how many times you move your arms like this, it's not going to happen, right? I could try it right here if I start floating. Yeah. But you can want to fly. So on Calvinism, there's the idea that you have free will, at least on the normal form of Calvinism that I hear. You have free will, but your free will is limited. You can't desire God, for example. You can't desire to know God. Now, if right, and total inability, right? You don't even have the ability to know God or to want to know God. But if you can want something that you can't do, then can you want to know God? Even if you, like on Calvinism, if you can't know God or can't want to know God, then do you have free will? Because let's say I want to fly by waving my arms. I can't fly by waving my arms. It's impossible. But I can want to fly by waving my arms. I can even try. I can try over and over and over again to wave my arms and fly. But it's impossible for me to do that. So the question comes back to that. If there's something that's impossible for us to do, right? If it's impossible for us to do something like to know God or to love God, then can we try to know God? Can we want to know God? Can we want it or try it?
Why are you saying it's impossible to know God? You lost me.
So on Calvinism, it's impossible to, you don't have the ability to pursue God. Is that right?
But it's not, yeah,
Right.
it's not just like a physical ability, not inability, it's that your heart itself
Right,
is
right.
so bent and so
That you can't even
Yeah.
want to know God or who God is
But
on
doesn't it
Calvinism.
say in the Bible that we all have like an inner like yearning to want to find God, when he reveals himself, just like what the tribes in the Amazon that have never seen a Bible before, like they still innately know like where in Calvinism does it say that we're so like
Oh.
are we paraphrasing this or is that like a thing? Like does it say that we are so
Yeah, so to cover all of Calvinism would be it would take a while.
I guess my question
But-
is where are we getting this from? Because that doesn't sound like it makes a logical sense in any form of like Christian belief or
Right,
doctrine.
right.
I think Calvinism
Now-
says that without the intervention of God, we would not seek him.
Yeah. So on Calvinism, without the intervention of God, without God initiating that and causing us to desire him, then we wouldn't desire him. Is that right, Al?
Yeah.
Okay. So without God doing that, then it would be impossible for us to do that.
Was the assumption that not everyone already has that baked in? Are we saying that
Yeah,
God only select certain people to have like that?
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Well, that would be the underlying assumption is that everyone is totally unable to even desire, like we were saying, to want to even try to get to know God. So, like in Romans 1, it talks about how the nature of God, who God is, can be clearly seen through what has been created, so that all are without excuse. So, if all are without excuse, then what does that imply? That there's no excuse for anybody to be able to look around and see, hey, this all points to God, but I can't figure it out. Jesus said, if you seek, you will find. If you knock, the door will be open to you. If you can look around, according to Romans 1, if you can look around at what God has made, his nature, things about him can be clearly seen. So that seems to make a lot of sense. But then, okay, Dennis?
It doesn't make sense to me because, just as a crude example, way back in the day, people thought the rainbow was God's sign for heaven and he would never love the earth again. But as we got smarter, we realized the rainbow is just the refraction of light through the sun.
Just one thing, the other, like, I get what you're saying, but nothing about the science of it prevents the belief of the why
Exactly.
from being the case.
I guess what I'm saying is just because you look around and see stuff that you can't understand, it's awe-inspiring. You look at you're in Idaho and you look up at the sky and you see all the stars. Just because it's awe-inspiring doesn't mean that God did it.
Okay. Doesn't mean that God did not do it.
No, it doesn't mean God did not do it.
Okay.
But it doesn't automatically mean that, oh my God, there's a God.
But Dennis, you
Right.
thought about it, right? You're like, man, this is pretty cool. Like, I wonder what started all this, right? And you don't believe it was God, and that's fine. But like, the fact that you like contemplated that, like that's your go at it, right? Like everybody has that. It's like, oh, is this God? Is this something else? That's the point.
That's human nature.
Right, it's human nature, and God puts that in. So I think what Peter is saying, the Bible says, is human nature is everyone has that
Curiosity.
awe moment where it's like, okay, you get to kind of pick at that point, like, am I going to go down the philosophical rabbit hole here, or am I going to go down the scientific, or somewhere in between, right? Like everyone's got that will, that choice.
Can I have my
Yeah. So
There's another great example. I think it's New Zealand or Australia. There's a cult called the Cardboard Cult. These Aborigines over there, the first time they ever saw an airplane come over and land, unload a bunch of stuff. That's God.
okay.
This is so unbelievable. Now they worship cargo planes.
Okay.
So just because something you see is mysterious and unbelievable, it doesn't automatically relegate it to the realm of
Right.
worship.
Right. I don't think anyone is making that argument though.
I don't think there's a systematic theology of cargo planes either. You know what I mean? If they actually
Right.
thought about what they believed. I get what you're saying, but like, you really can't get into like there's no logic to it, right? Like they can believe in cargo planes all they want, but when you unpack like all the questions that we're talking about in this class, there's no way cargo planes or any derivative thereof can answer all that.
Right. And they would be thinking, I mean, if they were to think, well, who made the cargo planes, or how did the cargo plane get here? I think they're probably thinking, wow, that's amazing. That's huge, and I've never seen that before. And they hold it to an elevated status. But
It's the limit of their education. They didn't know any better.
right.
Just because the rest of the first world learned more, came up with more, it doesn't mean that Christianity is any more logical, any more sensible than the cargo cult.
No, so you
Okay.
down it, and it's right, varying degrees of education, right? That's why at the end of the day, we really like go super deep in this class, right? We go down to the weeds and the homework and all that stuff, but it always comes back to the same question that was posed to Jesus: what's the most important commandment? And he said, love your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, love your neighbor as yourself. It is literally so easy. Someone with an IQ of like 5 can get it, right? So that's the thing. Like, that's the beauty of it. It is like the common denominator. That way no one can be like, I didn't know. There's no way, I couldn't have asked that question. Like that's the
Yeah.
whole thing about Christianity. It's as easy or as complicated as you want to make it.
So we need to ask, does God want to make it tough? Is God trying to make it really complex? Is God trying to make it hard so he can keep as many people out of heaven as he wants, right? As he can? No, he's trying to make it easy. Like if you seek, you'll find it. If you knock, the door will be open to you. If you don't harden your heart, or when you look around and you see things that God has made, and when you think it through, when you really look at it, if you don't harden your heart, that's going to produce a different effect than if you do harden your heart.
You think Christianity is easy?
Yeah, I think it's super easy.
We're saved by grace through faith, not by works. We're saved by grace through faith, not by works. So now there's a house in New Orleans that was so no. So
Judaism was easy.
So is God, is what, sorry?
Judaism is difficult, but it's a lot easier than Christianity.
Okay. I don't think a works-based system is easier than a non-works-based system. I don't see how that would be easier.
Just my
Okay. Well, I mean, think about it like this. What's easier? What kind of job is easier to maintain? A works-based job where your performance is measured and you keep your job if you do a really good job. You work yourself to death 16 hours a day, or you have a pulse. Or if you just have a pulse, you keep your job. What's easier for you to do? The non-works-based system, the non-works-based job. That's easier to maintain.
So not getting too far down into James on this one, right? But the other piece of that is, like, Christianity is not works-based, but if you're truly doing what you're supposed to be doing as a Christian, the work will fall out of that, right? As opposed to, I'm getting into heaven because I follow 1 through N number of rules. I'm getting into heaven because Jesus is my Lord and Savior, and my actions should reflect Jesus, and therefore my works, everything I do, all that stuff, even though everyone fails on a constant basis on that because we're human.
So we have a lot of questions up here. I want to try to answer them, but I don't want to rush through them. But I think some of them have correlation, right? So if we have free will, let's take this top one. If my choice is free, how does God ensure the result? If I have free will, how can God accomplish X? Has anyone read Isaiah 53? Good, Dennis has, okay. So it talks about God's messenger being crucified. It basically lays out the whole thing of Jesus dying on the cross. So how did God accomplish that? Through people's free will. Did God know that was going to happen? Yes. But they had free will. And it even says, I forget the reference, I always forget the reference to it, but it says, I think it's in Acts, if they had known that they were crucifying the Lord of glory, then they would not have crucified him. So it didn't say if God made them not do it, right? If they had known, if they had known what they were doing, who they were doing this to, then they would not have done it. So that's an indication of free will. It's also an indication of God knowing what these people would do freely. And knowing that if they didn't know, because they'd hardened their hearts and they weren't listening to Jesus. They'd hardened their hearts against God and against him. They chose to do that thing because their hearts were hardened. But does God influence us? How does that tie into this?
I mean, we pray.
Oh, can I get the...
Sorry for the other end of the room here.
Yeah.
We pray and we ask God to be involved in our lives. I mean, just as much as you would ask a father to help you in something, you can ask God to help you in something. Doesn't seem to me to be an issue of him violating any of our free will. We voluntarily ask him to come into our lives, or by very nature of him being who he is, that he comes and does it
Yeah. Yeah, so he can influence us, and that could be through prayer. That could be through someone else or something else happening in our lives. That could be why he can do that through allowing suffering, or good things or bad things to happen in our lives too. Right? Yes?
Yeah, so I think I'm still confused, but it feels like to me like we want to say that God is sovereign,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to say we have free will, but then when God's sovereignty gets to be really hard, when it sort of contradicts free will, then we want to slip back and talk about influence. But influence is not
Right.
the first cause out. You know what I mean? If we say God influences, that's different than saying God causes everything in the world to happen.
Right, right.
And that's where that's where it's tricky.
Yeah.
It's a mystery.
And so that it depends on the definition of sovereignty, right?
So I think if you're a strict Calvinist, so I think you say God is the first cause of everything, right?
Right.
So it's not God influences everything and works out some final destination, but along the way, people can make free choices, and maybe the path to get there is not all predetermined by God, or is it?
Well, if we make free choices, then it can't be all predetermined by God.
Why?
Because, let's see. Well, I don't need to write it, but it's logically impossible to make someone freely do something.
Okay. But to argue.
Oh, can I get the mic over? Sorry, I need that drone.
Yeah, just as a thought on that. And this is where in Romans you have that whole litany of questions that comes up. At the very end, Paul says, "Can the clay say to the potter, 'Why have you made me thus?'" Right. I think that's a great example of we are created by God.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this free will that we inherently have has come from somewhere.
Right.
And the way that my free will acts compared to Bill's free will acts is going to be different because we're different people. God made us that way.
Mm-hmm.
So if we recognize that God made us and say, hey, we agree that God made us, then how can that not be ordered? I mean, isn't it very possible that God, knowing the way that he has created us and the situation that we're going to be in, knows all of our choices and free will? I mean, that's
Yes.
a free will argument.
Yes.
But at the same time, the fact that he's made us that way has led us down that path. And just to go back to what he was saying, sorry, I don't remember your name. If we talk about free will in the stance of sin entering the world at the fall, and you might have a great argument against this, I don't know. It seems like you could argue, hey, we had free will in the garden, but then we sinned. Now we have a sin nature. We are therefore fallen and cannot desire anything of God. And as a result of that, we need Jesus to open our hearts effectively. And he makes that case many times over. John 6:65 is an example where he says, basically no one can come to the Father unless he brings them.
Mm-hmm. Unless he draws them, right?
Unless he draws them,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of verses like that, so it's not so far off to think, hey, that's not biblical. There's
Right.
lots of examples of Jesus himself saying, hey, you Pharisees aren't in because you're not part of my flock.
Yeah, they'd harden their hearts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I want to remember, you said a lot there, a lot of good stuff. I want to make sure I remember. So the key thing that stood out to me was if God creates us and creates us with free will, then is that really free? Right? Is that kind of, I mean, does that set in motion?
Is there a logical issue with predestination in that case?
With predestination.
To make those choices.
With predestination or with determinism?
I don't know.
Okay. So if God creates us with free will, then what do we have the ability to do? We have the ability to think, to reason, to know things. We would have intentionality, right? If we are deterministic, like a computer, like a chair, like a cell phone, if we are deterministic, we cannot do those things. But it's logically impossible for God to make someone, for anyone, to make someone freely do something. Because make someone do something, then they're not doing it freely. And if someone does something freely, then you're not making them do it. So can we get the microphone over there? Yeah, thanks.
Should we say that God allows free will instead of makes it happen? So the way I look at it is like, I can only speak from my own experience, but like when you go to a restaurant, they give you a menu. They like let you decide what you're gonna eat, but they know like the end result is you'll be eating. I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But like I feel like God allows free will, knowing that the end result will be me seeking some way or another.
Right. So but are you seeking him? Are you seeking him because he's making you seek him, or are you choosing to seek him? Right.
I think we just naturally seek him whether we want to or not, but we don't do it seeking God at first.
Maybe we're not aware of
We
it.
do it with money or
You're
with
saying.
sex or other stuff, but like unconsciously we're seeking God. We just like my experience was I did it in other things, and then eventually I found out that it was God all along that I was seeking. If that makes any sense.
Okay. So is it compatible to say that we choose things, that we make decisions, but they are not free? They're forced on us.
I think so. You said you can't make someone choose freely, and the song came to mind, "You made me love you, I didn't want to do it."
Right.
And that really applies.
Okay. But if someone's making you do something, then are you doing it freely?
Well, I mean, the song was about, you were so good to me
Right.
that you made me, I mean, that sort of applies to God and us. We have free will to reject him. I don't know if
Okay.
we have free will to accept him, but
I'm not sure I know of the song, but I don't.
you don't want me to go there.
I mean, you can sing it if you want. You got the mic. We're talking about the logical possibility, right? Is it logically possible to make someone freely do something? And I'm saying that's not logically possible,
I
right?
think if you're God, yes, because
Okay.
you have
Okay.
an infinite amount of resources at your disposal to bring
God.
someone to a decision that they make on their own, but you know they're going to
But that's not determinism. If they make it on their own, that would be free will, right?
I'm not talking about the terminology.
But let's pause there for a second where you were saying, can God do the logically impossible?
No.
However, do you believe that God created you?
Yes.
Do you believe you have free will?
Oh, can we get the mic? Sorry. Can we get? I'll repeat it then. So, do I believe God created me? Yes. Do I believe God gave me free will? Was I created with free will? Yes.
Yes, then he has made you to have free will.
Right. He created me with free will.
Saying is logically impossible.
No, to give someone free will.
He makes you have free will. He doesn't make you choose left or right. He gives you the opportunity to choose left or right. He doesn't tell you what to do. So yes, I think we can all agree, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
God makes all of us have free will, but he doesn't make us choose one way or another.
But,
How
So-
about,
okay, well,
He-
my other thought is, if he makes us and we choose differently,
If he makes us and we choose differently,
can he make us choose differently?
can he make us
For-
choose
for
differently?
example, you know, I like one thing, somebody else likes something else. We both are choosing freely, but God has made us in such a way that we choose according to our preferences and our desires, the things that we seek.
There you go.
So it's he's still creating us. He's still
So if we
us that way.
right, so if we are determined to choose something based on our desires, then is that free will?
Well, yeah, it is.
Okay, it's if we desire this the most, then we will do this
And
because we have to do it
there's
because
a lot of things involved in that, but yeah.
Peter,
okay,
I do agree that people
Well-
choose according to their desires.
what they desire the most.
Or Yeah, it's not.
I mean, I think our desires influence us. Our desires definitely influence us. But if our desires are the efficient cause of all of our actions, then how is that free will? That wouldn't be free will, because it would be determinism, because we would be acting deterministically based on what we desire the most. It would be a deterministic process. If we desire X the most, then we will do X. If we desire Y the most, we will do Y. If we desire Z the most, we will do Z. We couldn't do anything else. We couldn't resist it. We couldn't not do it for some other reason. It would just be based on what we desire the most, then we will do that thing. And that's not compatible with free will. So, Dennis.
Did Judas have free will?
Yes.
He could not have not done what he did. He had to do what he did.
Well, that's fatalism.
Purpose of,
That'd be fatalism if he had to do what he did.
well, didn't he?
Well, no. If he had free will, he did not have to do what he did. He did not have to betray Jesus.
How could he not have done what he did?
Well,
Jesus had been,
the Bible
Jesus
verse,
wouldn't have been sacrificed.
So,
the Bible verse is the Son of Man goes as was determined of him, and woe to that man by whom he is betrayed. You know, so it was determined that Jesus would go to the cross, but it doesn't say necessarily.
so if it was a deterministic process of Jesus going to the cross, then what was the whole deal with the Garden of Gethsemane? Why would there be any struggle? He wouldn't even have to worry about anything. It's like, hey, it's going to happen. It's a deterministic process. I don't have to try to get, I don't have to commune with God and get myself right, or keep myself right, keep my, there'd be no struggle. It'd be, oh, this is going to happen one way or another. It doesn't matter what I do, right? It's going to happen. But that's not what happened. Where's the mic? Okay.
Real quick two-part, right? One on the free will piece, right? So if we want to call it free will, bounded free will, whatever the case may be, I still don't have a way, like, to logically or in detail reconcile free will with God knowing the end result, being able to see the end result, dictate the
Okay.
end result, whatever we want to call it, right? But
Okay.
I will pose the question like this, right? So this doesn't explain it, but this should put a big shadow of doubt in people's mind that it's not the case. This should argue that we do have free will and you can reconcile the two. God wouldn't create creatures that mindlessly follow him. He wouldn't create a bunch of robots to mindlessly follow him, because there's no point to that, right? So ergo, we've got to be able to say no to God. We've got to be able to say yes or no in everything that we do. I'd either choose sin or don't choose sin, whatever the case may be. And which, circle back on like the computer issue and all that stuff we were talking about earlier, at the end of the day, you've got parameters, right? No computer can have free will.
Right.
It's impossible.
Mhm.
It is impossible for a computer to have free will, which is why you never have to worry about computers coming online, having souls, all that other crap. Like, it's that simple. Okay,
Well, remember, hang on, Dennis. This will explain it. This will explain it. Remember when it was one of the Terminator movies when he was trying to not, I think it was with Arnold and John Connor. Right? He's trying not to hurt him or something, but he has to, right? He doesn't want to. He wants to not, but he has to, right? There's that struggle there. I mean, that's not realistic because a computer wouldn't have free will, but that kind of illustrates that struggle. It's like, oh, I don't want to, but I have to. I don't want to, but I have to, and fighting with yourself. Well, that's a computer.
It's John. Yeah. Could Judas not have done what he did?
And the end result still been the same with Jesus getting crucified?
And that would have resulted in, somebody had to do what Judas did.
Yeah,
Well, no. To the question was, did Judas have to do what he did?
Judas have to do what he did. Did he have free will to say, screw it? I'm
Dennis,
not
no,
gonna kiss Jesus.
he did not have to betray Jesus. If he had free will, then he didn't have to betray Jesus. He did not have to do what he did unless he didn't have free will.
I don't know that we can authoritatively say could not.
It's too deep for us to figure out and just sit.
So if we assume that there's fatalism, then sure. I mean, everything that happens had to happen. But if he had free will, then he chose to do that thing. Could he have chosen otherwise? Of course. But if he had chosen otherwise, God would have known that he would have chosen otherwise.
It's a brain bender, man.
So that's how God can, say, have someone write scripture that he knows is going to be correct. Someone who he knows, if he puts this person in this situation, would this person write down what I want them to write down? If the answer is yes, then he could put that person in that situation and have something totally inspired, totally accurate. If he knows that this person would not do that, then it would produce a different result.
This is what John said. It's how can you equate God knowing what's going to happen? Judas
Yeah, that's what I was just saying.
had to do what he did. He could not have done otherwise. And whether or not he could theoretically do this sucks, but I have to do it.
But why would he have to do it?
It's like saying
Like, that's-
Hitler popped out his top and Joel, wanted to do what he ended up doing.
What would be making him do it?
Like, he wasn't born a genocidal maniac. He became one. God knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I think we're going to have to wrap up because of time, but if we can get the mic over here real quick.
My answer is that,
And then we'll go to Al. Then we'll go to Al and we'll wrap up.
I just,
And you.
we
Is your hand up?
like a robot.
I didn't see
we are
it, sorry.
created beings. We're created beings. We only have as much free will as was programmed, as God allows us to have. Before the fall, we didn't have the free will to determine what was good and what was bad. God had to tell us. After the fall, we got the knowledge of good and evil.
Well, we wouldn't.
So they knew they were naked.
Well, we wouldn't determine what's good or evil. It would be good or evil objectively.
So we weren't determining it, but I'm saying free will is a big word.
Okay.
God only has free will.
Okay.
We have something where we can make choices
Mm-hmm.
based on our limited understanding, our limited knowledge, our limited abilities, and our limited programming, the things that are inside us.
Okay. So limited free will. So it's not free or not free. It's free but limited. We can't want to do something that we cannot do.
And I think, I think whether we love, because we throw out the term and it makes us feel like, oh yeah, I got free will. We don't have anything like free will that God has.
Okay.
There's nothing that God can't do. There's very
Nothing he
little that
can't do, but that's different than a free will. Right? You can choose to try to fly by flapping your arms.
talking about capability versus will.
Well,
Ability versus, versus being it.
that really goes, I mean, what you want.
I want to be 10 foot tall. Not
Well,
possible.
Just try harder, right? Like
I probably will.
So, but I think free will is limited by what we can do. So even though we may want something,
Well, we either have free will or we don't have free will.
So water is
So, yeah, so we either can desire, we can choose to try to fly by waving our arms around, but that doesn't mean that we can. We don't have the ability to fly, but we have the ability to choose to try to fly.
so that's why it's limited. I mean, we can want whatever we want, but even what we want.
But we can't
is
do
limited.
everything.
We don't know everything.
Right. So let me, I did not see your hand, I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand up at all. So if we can capture both these questions and then, because we're running out of time, and then if I can answer them.
I left here and I went to listen to today's sermon because I don't believe that what we're talking about has a lot of importance in my life. Honestly, because no matter what I do, it's I'm gonna
today's message that Pastor Mike said, talks about, honestly answers all your questions here.
Okay. Well, good.
So listen very carefully.
Okay.
Honestly, my point of view is, in this physical world, independent of your point of view, you might think that you have free will, or somebody might, but I think in God's will, everything is according to what He wants.
Okay. So God will make happen whatever He wants. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Okay.
And I would say that, I would say it's possible that Judas had to betray Christ. It was foretold that he would, and but it was still his free will decision in that those circumstances. That's how he would react with his, with his desires and whatever.
So Judas had to do it, is what you're saying?
But he didn't have to do it in the way that a computer has to do what it's programmed to do. It's still a free will.
He had to do it, but he didn't have to do it.
Yeah.
So it's A equals not A.
No, it's not.
Ah, okay.
It's
It's at least equivocation, right?
When God approached Pharaoh in such a way that Pharaoh would.
Well, did God know Pharaoh would harden his own heart? Yes, right? And so did Pharaoh harden his own heart? Yes. But then God, after Pharaoh hardened his own heart, God hardened Pharaoh's heart even more. He built upon the decision that Pharaoh had already made for himself.
It actually
Right?
says, God says first, I will harden his heart.
Right. In the future,
In the
I will harden it.
future. So it's
Right.
later that Pharaoh actually.
Yeah, God said, I will harden Pharaoh's heart. He will. It's a future thing, right? Then Pharaoh hardens his heart, a present tense thing. Then it says, after that God hardened Pharaoh's heart.
But I think it was in response to what God was doing that Pharaoh hardened his heart. That God.
Well, yeah, but Pharaoh hardened his own heart. Now, I'm so sorry, we're out of time. I could talk about this all day. I like this, but so sorry. But thank you for your attention and engaging with this. So, and it's good to try and get the stuff on the microphone because so far it's only been my side of it. So I could just, as far as someone watching the video, I could just